Welcome to the third episode of In a Few Words series, where we spotlight lawyers from Innangard member firms. Today, I'm meeting Ulf Goeke from Seitz in Germany. Hello, Ulf. It's very nice to be here in Cologne.
Hello, Paloma. Welcome.
Let me start by asking you, why did you decide to be an employment lawyer?
For me, it's two questions. First decision was to become a lawyer, and then much later to become an employment lawyer. So in school, sometimes we had a judge come around, and he was telling stories about his life being as a judge. And he was a funny judge, so these stories appealed to me because, if you're in school and have no connection to law, otherwise, how do you know what a lawyer does? So I just did my studies, and then afterwards, which started my professional life as a trainee of a large German bank. So I moved to Frankfurt and did banking. And after a while, 6 years, I realized that I wasn't completely happy, and maybe this large corporate world and the banking was not really, maybe to some extent, not really challenging. And then Stefan Seitz, I knew him from university, and I'd done a bit of work for him, and he was an employment lawyer, and he said, well, if you would like to get out of the bank, you can come and join our firm. And so I just did it, and that was my start to become an employment lawyer, and so I became to like it. So it's nice because, it's economy and people, and you get really new challenges every day. So every case is different, and that's really fun. Sometimes I also like that it's mostly you work on your own, but it's nice to have sometimes projects where you then have really teamwork. It's fun because I think we have a lot of very smart people here, so that is fun to work together with those people.
Let's move on to the next question. What's the smartest thing anybody has ever said to you, and who said it?
I would say that's just my wife, and the smartest things she says every day. And she's not a lawyer, which is a good thing. She's a very different person. She's a physician, and being a lawyer, it's kind of frustrating, but also every time kind of, in a way, very teaching not to be able to win an argument against someone. Because she just, let's say, at least in 90% of the cases, I would say she's right. Listen to your wife. At least, not in matters of law as such, but in any kind of other, let's say, private matters, she's right.
Okay. What's the most unusual or memorable case you've worked on?
It's maybe a bit unfair to pick one. A very interesting case that I had was involved a Formula One driver. Formula One is actually dominated by the British, so this was English law actually, and so we were working together with British law firms, so of course solicitors and barristers, and was for me also a very interesting insight into international cooperation, different jurisdictions and the way they work. Yeah, it was also good fun, but also like we spent days and nights in that case, and I liked that case a lot, and it was a bit out of the ordinary. And also to learn how to that English person communicate, maybe not as direct as we Germans tend to do. So sometimes messages might get lost in translation. So that's kind of also something like cultural learning that I had from that case. But still, it made me also very much look forward for more international work.
Let's move on to the next question. What skill outside of law has helped you most in your career?
Yeah, I think some of that really goes back to my time at the bank. So I have quite a good understanding of economics and business administration. Well, to form a case, sometimes you help the client because you have to argue along economic lines. Like if you have a termination for operational reasons, you have to give the court your decision, and that has to have an economic reasoning. So at least it makes sense. Strictly speaking, you don't have to do that. So the entrepreneur can decide whatever he wants, but you have to show how that will affect the course of the business, and so how that can be implemented. And so to that extent, it is very helpful to have a bit of an understanding how things work and to help your client or to discuss things with them and develop strategies. I'm quite good at Excel, so that sometimes comes in very handy, because if we have to do projects which involve, let's say, a lot of people, mass dismissals. You have huge amounts of data which someone has to take care of, and sometimes you have to value certain positions and so on. So you need someone who has a bit of Excel knowledge, and probably the other thing is also I'm a linguistic talent, and also I'd say liking especially for the English language. Apparently that kind of helped me in kind of turning cross-border work.
What has been the biggest lesson you've learned as a lawyer?
Precision and persistence, I would say. So you really learn to be thorough, investigating. Before you do that, you think it's a lot about the law, but the work is maybe 10% about the law, like legal discussions, and 90% about the facts. So you have to get your facts right, and you have to own the facts, develop the facts, and investigate the facts. That's important, and kind of persistence. You have to really see that everything comes shapely and in order. And of course, to pursue and fight for the interests of your client. I think I could never have been a judge. The judge has to be objective. I really like to be partial, to be kind of on the side of my client. And that's good fun, because to some extent, the lawyer fights for that. It's an intellectual fight that you have, and you fight by certain rules, of course, which you have to adhere to. That's part of the game. And then it's a nice fight. There's no blood, but there may be intellectual blood. I think that's good fun. That's challenging, and that makes kind of every day like, okay, sometimes you get a case or read, now we have lost, or just now it is very difficult, and you start to think about, well, what can we do? What's the strategy? Sometimes you have dug yourself out of the hole at the end of the day and see kind of the evening sun, maybe. That's always a nice feeling. Okay, this is not as bad as I thought.
What movie or book related to law would you recommend?
I enjoyed very much Alan Dershowitz's Reversal of Fortune, inside the Von Bülow case. There's also a book and a movie. The movie starring Jeremy Irons. Like the American or Anglo system is much more good for kind of drama, and like these courtroom dramas couldn't happen in a German court, because in the judge we don't have this adversarial role, and we don't have a jury, so we don't have this kind of audience. So as far as there's one good German author, Ferdinand von Schirach, he's a criminal lawyer, and his books are very good. He's a good writing style, but that is, of course, it's not courtroom drama.
Yeah, last question. What small daily habit or routine that makes a big difference in your life?
The morning walk with my dog. I like just being out there in the morning, crisp air, and you have the dog. And so you come to your desk and be kind of properly aired and fresh, and a bit happier than maybe before. We have the good location in relation to the park here, so like the Stadtwald. Of course, you meet all the kind of same people and dogs more or less each day. So dog can play, I can walk, have a little chat with the other dog owners, and then start the day at the desk.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ulf, for the nice conversation.
Thank you, Paloma. It was my pleasure. Good to have you here in Cologne. Enjoy the rest of your stay in the lovely Rhineland.